Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Artsbeat TV and radio here from Westfield Community Programming Channel 15, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwick Community Programming. I'm Mark Auerbach, and with me is a familiar face here, Kathy Palmer. You see her on other programs here.
Yes, indeed.
On community radio and TV. And she's involved with the Westfield Theater Group. And the Westfield Theater Group's been around for quite a long time. It's a great little community theater organization. They don't do your everyday community theater fare. They opened their season this year with a powerhouse of a play called Marvin's Room. Mm-hmm. And then moving into as the season progresses, for the holidays, It's a Wonderful Life, which is the film that you all know and love, which has been adapted for the stage, and later on that musical that's currently on Broadway, 1776.
It is.
So Kathy, I mean, usually when we're in the same studio, it's because Ken Stomsky is on one side of us and Bob Plass and all that. So it's really nice to get to just chat with you one-on-one.
And it feels very different being here at a different time with you instead of the two that I have on either side of me. And sometimes, as you know, it gets a little overwhelming with particularly the friend on my right.
Yeah.
It is hard to get things in, but I'm very happy to be here. You mentioned that the Westfield Theater Group, and it is just a community theater group, but we try to do our best with what we did. We have been in operation since at least the 1930s. Consecutively, the only time that we did take a break, of course, was during World War II. There was 1 year that we didn't do things. It was, for all you old-timers who are my age, never mind.
I won't ask.
You don't ask. It's okay. But anyway, it was known for the longest time as the Little Theater Group. When I was growing up, that's what it was called. So I would like to share with you how I got involved.
Yeah, I want to know how people get in. I mean, I look at the roster of what's going on and who some of the names and faces are, and I realize I know these people. They've been in the community doing this kind of stuff for years. Correct.
And I think also, Mark, because you have followed theater and you are certainly very deeply invested in much more theater than I am, and I applaud you for that, and thank you for coming back to Westfield, because it really is helpful to have someone like you come in who knows all of the regional theater and the things that are going on, because here I really don't. We don't. We're just very secular. But in terms of community theater, it's changed. You know, when I started, and Bob Plass and I together 1,000 years ago, when his hair really was dark brown, and so was mine, as a matter of fact. And you too can be coffee bean brown number 42. But when we started, it was mostly Westfield people. You know, you went to the theater to see your friends be up there so you could make fun of them. That was the good reason. But it was mostly community people that appeared in these shows. And of course, as you know, it was pretty much the same people every year that got the roles in the shows. But over the past, I would say 10 or 15 years, we are much more mobile than we used to be. So you see people, for example, in Marvin's Room, there was only, I believe, 2 cast members from Westfield. The rest were all from surrounding communities. So it's changed. You see the same people now going out to Exit 7, to Suffield Players, up into Amherst and around. So it's kind of interesting what we have for our cast nowadays.
Yeah, I interviewed some people from KETG Theater, which performs primarily in Northampton. And a couple of the actors, they did The Wild Party, which is a very unique, I mean, I got to backtrack and say that what the community theaters are doing here program-wise is very different and unique from most places. You don't see a lot of productions of Grease or Annie or The King and I or The Sound of Music.
Right, the old
but you
chestnuts,
see more challenging works being done. But I interviewed these 2 young actors that were in this, and one of them commutes back and forth from Connecticut, where she's involved in one of the community theaters in Connecticut, and the other one was coming from like northern part of Franklin County.
Oh my
and
goodness.
Actors now, there's a lot of actors that work in community theater here that travel.
They do. I remember we had a young man when I was doing up in East Hampton. I think it was You Can't Take It With You. I was in that show, and we had a young man coming from down around Fitchburg. He was going to school down there. I mean, he was driving 2 hours just to come up for rehearsal. I was amazed. But you're right, they're coming from all over now. And you still have your standard people from the community that are still in the shows or still in the production. But it's changing. It's really changing. And I think a lot of community theaters, we just saw, I don't know if you had a chance to see Something Rotten over at Exit 7. It was a wonderful show. Marvin's Room, fabulous show. Different from Westfield. It was dark. Very serious, very heavy, particularly Act 2, as you know, because I know you're familiar with it. But you're seeing some of these things happen, as opposed to, as you said, doing Oklahoma, which, by the way, it still brings people in.
It still does. I mean,
They
but
love
the
it.
thing is that we don't have, in Westfield or Springfield, we don't have a resident professional theater company like we did with the days of Stage West.
Correct.
And the
Oh,
Broadway
Stage
shows
West.
don't play in Springfield. So you have this circle of professional theater companies in Hartford and in the Berkshires, and not much in between. So anybody that's involved in theater has to travel a little bit to do shows. And I applaud the community theaters for taking on the challenges that they do. Like Something Rotten is a hysterically funny show.
Oh, it was a wonderful show. They
I
did
saw it at the Bushnell, and I think I had to be scraped off the floor from the omelet dance number.
Oh, God, yes.
You know, and
Yes.
of course, it has this
Wonderful.
big, wonderful song in the first act called a musical, you know, which kind of
Yes.
salutes every
Let's do
Broadway
a
musical
musical.
known to
Yep,
mankind. But you're not seeing that around and about that often. And
Mm-hmm.
Marvin's Room, I saw initially in its pre-Broadway run at Arena Stage in Washington. And
see.
it's a play that really is quite marvelous, but doesn't get done very often. So the idea that Westfield is taking on shows like this, it's great. And I like the idea that you all are doing It's a Wonderful Life, because we're all kind of tired out of Christmas Carol. And funny enough, there are no Christmas Carol productions around this year. It's like,
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Usually they're everywhere.
yeah, usually they're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Hartford Stage, which had a really well-known
seen this,
production,
yes, it's
is actually doing the radio version of It's a Wonderful
Oh.
Life now. And Berkshire Theater Group went to concerts instead of Christmas Carol. And then TheaterWorks has its knockoff of every Christmas story known to humanity called Christmas on the Rocks. So
Oh, yes,
to
I know
see
that
It's a Wonderful Life,
Yeah.
it's a great play.
Well, we've done several plays, and honestly, I think Marion Dunk, my other partner who works with me, and she knows my brain better than I do, which is an exceptional point. With the Christmas tours, we've probably done 7 or 8 different Christmas plays, but Wonderful Life, believe it or not, is I think the most successful, even more so than Christmas Carol. It always brings people in at Christmas time, Mark. It always gets them there, which is interesting because, as you know, when the film was released, originally it didn't do well.
No, it wasn't until it played on the late night movies that it became
Correct.
a hit.
Correct. Once it went out, of course, folks, for people listening, and a lot of people are not familiar with the James Stewart, Donna Reed, what do you want? I'll lasso you the moon, whatever that line was. But in terms of the film itself, it came out really post-World War II. People were not interested in the feel-good, happy movies. They wanted war movies. They wanted action movies. That's what they wanted. And then as time went on, it sort of fell off. Nobody did a lot with it. And then they didn't renew the royalties. Something happened along the way. Whoever dropped the ball, the royalties were let go, and whoosh, it went out into the public domain. And once it did that, that's when we were seeing it on TV every 5 minutes. You couldn't go anywhere. And now it's become one of the most inspirational movies ever. Now, you can take that for a grain of salt because it depends on who's making up the list. But it's supposed to be one of the best movies for inspirational thought.
It's funny. It's a movie I've seen once and would never
I
go
don't
watch
like
a
the
second
movie.
time. I don't like the movie at all.
No,
And when
I agree.
then the next time I saw a stage version was a musical version of it at Goodspeed that I could have walked out of. I mean,
it's too bad.
It was well done, but it just didn't hit home. And then seeing Hartford Stage's version, which is done as a 1940s radio show with a Foley sound recording and a small group of actors with commercials interspersed in it, as though you were in the golden age of radio. The first thing I thought about is when J. Luca would do his Friday morning golden age of radio programs here. I found the technical thing, being a radio person, I found it fascinating to watch. And then I went back to see how it compared to the movie. And the script is almost identical, except for they inserted the commercials and stuff. But I had a bigger appreciation for It's a Wonderful Life. So when are the performances?
We are the first 2 weekends in December, and then the second weekend it starts on the second and third. The second weekend we have a matinee in the afternoon, and we do have some wonderfully talented local people, and that's the good thing about community theaters, Mark. We have two agendas here. One agenda, of course, is to entertain the community, to give them a chance to see a live play at a decent expense, close to home where you can go and you can take the kids and you can take the families. We're very good parents. I don't question anyone's ability, but we've become a drop-off generation with our children. We take them to soccer and watch them. We take them to school programs, we watch them. We take them other places, we drop them off. But when you provide them with theater that they can come and sit with their kids and enjoy as a family. So one of the objectives of community theater is to provide entertainment for the community. But the other objective that we really have to think about is to provide the chance for people who want to get up on stage to try it. And sometimes we have people in Wonderful Life, our age range is from 9 to in the 70s. And I won't tell who the 70s are, but anyway, you'll figure it out. It gives them a chance. Now, if they get up on stage, Mark, and they never want to do it again, I don't care. I just care that they tried it this one time, just once. And they might have just a walk-on line, but that takes a lot of courage. And we've had some really successful people go on. Peter Scuderi. I don't know if you know Peter.
I know the name.
Peter started here in town with us. We had Hubbard. His last name was Hubbard. He danced in Cats eventually on Broadway. So
the Burridge Boys.
Andy, Burridge is another one.
Boys,
Burridge is another one that came from Westfield and went on. So if you didn't have these opportunities in the school or somewhere in your community, how would you ever know this is where you wanted to go?
Exactly. Kathy, we're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters. We'll be back with more with Kathy Palmer. We're going to talk about the Westfield Players at 1776 and all other good things. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
This is Ken Stomsky from Ken's Den on WCPC 15 and 89.5 FM, Tuesdays, 8 to 10.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. If you've missed a part of today's program or you want to watch it again, share it with your friends, it's archived on WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. My guest this half hour is Kathy Palmer. She's a very familiar face and voice here because I believe it's Tuesday mornings. You co-star with Ken Stomsky and Bob Plass and all of that. This is a more sedate program, I think, than Tuesday. I've done Wow, It's Tuesday before, and it's kind of like crazy that early in the morning, you know?
You never know what you're going to come up with when you work with those two in between. You never know. So we just sort of roll with the punches most of the time, as live theater does. As you know, you just roll with the punches.
Yeah, you have to be flexible and all of that. So It's a Wonderful Life, and then we started talking during the break about 1776.
We did.
If you don't know what it's about the forefathers and mothers, the Declaration of Independence, and it opened a little over 50 years ago on Broadway. It was made into a very successful movie, and it's a revival of it is currently on Broadway.
It is.
In a complete revision of it, featuring an all-female or female-identifying cast.
Correct.
It's gotten interesting reviews. I don't think they've changed any songs in it or any words of the script. I think that they've reorchestrated it and things. But 1776 is kind of interesting because it's American history right off the pages of,
Correct.
of a history book coming to life.
Correct. We'll be doing that in the spring. Rob Clark is going to be the director, and George Garber is the music director. And they do have auditions coming up. It is a heavy men's cast. No, I don't mean that men have to be heavy. I mean we need a lot of men. There are only 2 women. I think Abigail Adams is one of them.
And Martha Jefferson, who has that great song, He Plays the Violin.
And that's it for women. So any men out there that are interested, if they want more information on exactly what we need for auditioning, they can go to the Westfield Theater Group website and find it. It should be interesting. It's a large costuming nightmare because, of course, it's all period costumes. So that will be something we have to overcome. But in other words, it's just going to be a great show. And a great show for Westfield. And I think because of the interest in Hamilton, we may be able to ride on some of those coattails coming in. So we're looking forward to starting. So auditions coming up, folks. Come on down, check the website.
So you've been involved for so many years.
Oh, God.
What is there 1 or 2 productions looking at the history that were really special to you?
You know, honestly, I think one of the best productions I was ever involved in was Evita. We did Evita several years ago, and I have to say that was David Kidwell, who was the music director. Bob Lavalette was the director. Professionally, it's probably one of the best shows I've seen put on as far as its cohesiveness and presentation. But Mark, we didn't bring in 100 people at a show.
Huh.
So having a show that's wildly popular doesn't always say, as you know this yourself, it doesn't always mean it was the best presentation. But Evita really struck home with me. One of my favorites was Robin Hood. Robin Hood was wildly successful. That was my script also, and Marion Dunk's music. Putting it together was a nightmare because there is no story about Robin Hood. Everybody thinks of the Errol Flynn movies, but it's just a lot of very small stories put together. And it turned out when we did it, Robin Hood was the second most successful show we have done in like the past 10 years, coming in only behind Oliver. And Oliver only beat us out by maybe 20 people, if that. So there's a lot of shows.
Oliver launched me in my...
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
What's really strange, I mean, I did it in our, I think it was 8th grade. Oliver. We did it, and I got to play Mr.
love
Bumble,
that.
the old man. And later on, I'm a professional actor, and I'm working
Yep,
and
yep.
everything. And there was a regional production, and I was 28 and playing the Artful Dodger. So
Oh, that's
I
a
got to
wonderful
age
part.
down over the years in Oliver. But Oliver, to me, was really special, and it was at Goodspeed a couple of years ago. And a friend and I took a teenager that hangs out with us who had never seen it, the movie or the play, or never read Oliver Twist and anything. And Oliver still really holds up. It's a great, great show.
It is, and that's one of those old shows that people always come in to see. So, do you have one that sticks in your mind as being your favorite?
For me personally,
Yeah.
I'm a Stephen Sondheim junkie, so I
Okay.
would say that Sweeney Todd ranks way up there among my favorites, or Follies, or Company. But from
yeah.
the shows I've worked on, I was very fortunate to work on the national tour of Hello Dolly with Carol Channing.
Now,
And
didn't James work with her
James
too?
Homan was in that too.
Yeah.
And that
Howard
and
James.
Florence Lacey, who lives down the road in Connecticut.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, that to me was so exciting to work with somebody
bet.
that incredible
bet.
and that famous was great. But there are other shows that when I was going to school in Washington, I worked in the box office at the National Theater. So I got to see all the pre-Broadway tryouts.
Oh, lucky you.
1776 was one of them. But by the time we closed out the box office, I only saw the second half of most of them. But I got to watch Promises, Promises. That was the Burt Bacharach, Hal David musical from its inception through its run in Washington, when a lot of new material was put into it. They added the song "I'll Never Fall in Love Again," which became the signature song.
Yeah.
That's up there on the list of favorites. And there are other shows, The Tap Dance Kid. I love The Tap Dance Kid. But it seems like the whatever the last show that I wrote a good review is the one that I love the most until the next one comes
Okay.
along.
All right, and it's hard to choose, isn't it?
It
Because
is hard
you
to
like
choose.
them for different reasons.
Yeah, because I'm not doing theater that I'm covering theater and reporting on it, but I'm not actually getting on stage anymore. I would love to do a show. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I could only really do an equity show, and I don't have the time to rehearse 4 or 5 weeks to do a performance run. So it would have to be something really special to get me back on the stage. On the other hand, those of you that watch the streaming of the Berkshire Theater Critics Berkey Awards, which is kind of the Tony Awards of Western Massachusetts, which is taking place on the 14th of November, Patrick Berry from Mass Appeal and I are co-presenters at that. So I've always wanted to co-present at an award show, so planning what to wear and, all that kind of good stuff.
Do we get to see you walk the red carpet?
I don't know.
I want a red carpet.
It's a
You
Monday
should
night.
Insist on it.
It's Monday night in Pittsfield, so who knows if there'll be a red carpet. And knowing the way I so casually attire myself, I don't think I'm not going to be wearing Halston or,
And who are you wearing tonight? Well,
I don't know. I don't want to say like this is Walmarche off the rack, or Le Target. But I like the role that I play in theater now by being a reporter and an advocate for the arts, whether it's here on this program or Pioneer Valley Radio or Westfield News Mass Live. Getting to write about theater is an honor for me and a thrill. Getting to acknowledge the hard work that you all put in to getting a show up and running, and actors and designers and the backstage people.
Oh,
I'm
Lordy,
so
yes,
respectful. I'm so
so
respectful of
much
the
work.
energy that it takes to put a show up.
and it's, you can't talk about theater, Mark, honestly, without thinking about all those support people. Your costume designer, your tech designer. We're very fortunate to have Frank Croak, Dr. Croak, who runs literally 24/7 from show to show doing the lighting. And most of the lighting he brings in is his own. Like Jay, he just unloads all these lights from his car that are his, and he went from something rotten to Marvin's Room. Then he's doing Wonderful Life, and then he's doing a show at St. Mary's. Then he's doing a show up country somewhere, and it's an amazing amount of time. And most of us don't get paid.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I mean, I work with musicians of the Springfield Symphony. And I work their performances. I mean, I work in the box office occasionally, or, you know, I do all the press. That's kind of my job. But people forget there are ushers involved in every show. And you can be a part of a community theater organization or a community orchestra and be involved even if you're not on the stage, and you put all this work and effort into it. And I feel it's my role as an arts reporter to acknowledge the fact that it just didn't come together. It took work.
And I do tell my cast that when you see these people, stop and say thank you. Say thank you to your stage director, because she or he is there as long as you are, if not longer. And they deserve the applause. And the other issue about a show to me, because we were talking about which show is your favorite and what do you like, and there's different things I like about different shows. And quite honestly, I've been to some, I went to, and I will not mention any specifics, but I happened to see a show regionally that had directors with, honestly, their curriculum vitae was amazing, where they'd been and what they'd done and where they directed, and they were New York and they were Boston and they were San Diego. Mark, you would have walked out after 10 minutes. I had to force myself to sit there and listen. It was just...
I get it. We're out of time, Kathy. Give us the website for Westfield Theater.
Well, we are in the middle of getting a new website, but right now, if they go to westfieldtheatergroup.com, they will get the information. We will be having tickets for sale for the Christmas program, December 2nd and 3rd, and the following weekend, and we hope to see you all there. Thank you. Mark, I'm really, really thrilled to be here.
Thanks for coming on this morning. Will you come do another show again?
Absolutely.
Terrific. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back with more Artsbeat. We've been chatting with Kathy Palmer from the Westfield Theater Group, and you can see Kathy here on Tuesday mornings on Wow It's Tuesday, sandwiched in between Bob Plass and Ken Stomsky, and those three just keep you on your toes at that hour. Thanks for being here.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. If you missed a part of today's programming or you want to watch it again or share it with your friends, you'll find it archived on WSKB Community Radio. We are broadcasting today on Westfield Community Programming, Channel 15, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Southwick Community Programming and Agawam Media. I like classical music, and one of the best programs up and down the valley is the Valley Classical Concerts, and I coerced 2 of my pals from that organization to come down and talk classical music. We have John Montanari, who is their artistic director, and his voice may be familiar to any of you that listen to classical music on WFCR, where he was the music programming and morning music guy, so to speak, for many, many years, and the chairman of the board, Bill Harbison, who not only chairs this organization, but is a viola player and occasionally makes concert debuts. Good to see both of you gentlemen this morning. Good morning.
Thank
Mark,
you.
how are you?
How are you all doing?
Very good.
Terrific.
Yeah. So let's start talking about Valley Classical Concerts and some of the programs that you have this season. And let's start. I know you've got one in November, but let's start with the December ones because this program is going to air right around Thanksgiving.
John, I'll let you take that.
Sure.
Artistic director.
Yep. On December 11th at 3 o'clock at Sweeney Concert Hall at Smith, we're presenting one of America's finest string quartets, the Miro, named for the artist Joan Miro. The Miro Quartet, they've been a standard bearer among American quartets for several decades now, and their game is really great. And there's nothing particularly or specifically holiday oriented about their programming, but it's a program with a kind of cozy warmth and home orientation. In fact, home is indeed the name of one of the works on the program, that I think it really will capture the spirit of December. And, looking forward to all the holidays that month brings. They're playing some Haydn. You got to do Haydn. He was basically the creator of the string quartet that is the centerpiece of our modern chamber music world. And then they're doing a piece that was written for the Miro in 2019 by Kevin Putz. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner. He won about 10 years ago for his opera Silent Night, a very well-received operatic telling of the Christmas Day truce among the combatants in World War I in 1914. And that made him something of a star in the classical music world. This piece is called Home, and Putz actually does a video that listeners or prospective listeners can look up. Kevin Putz Home, about where the ideas, not just musical ideas, but the meaning of the work came to him as he was walking around New York in 2019 and thinking about the concept of home, who has a home, who is looking for a home, immigration, other issues of the day play into it. And it's an accessible piece. He actually says he writes it in plain old C major. I mean, composers are actually writing pieces in the same old keys as the masters nowadays. And so I like to have programs that have something a little bit new and different in addition to the masters. And Haydn is one of those masters, and so is Antonín Dvořák, the wonderful Czech composer who returned to his homeland after a couple of years in the U.S. Actually, when he wrote the New World Symphony and the Cello Concerto and other works in the early 1890s, and wrote a couple of final string quartets, of which he was one of the 19th century's greatest masters. And this quartet in A flat major is, again, just a melodic, warm, again, very home-oriented piece. His home being, of course, a rural setting where he lived in Bohemia, now the Czech Republic. So that's going to be just a really, really satisfying, rich program that, as I like our programs to do, leave our audience feeling like they have a belly full of music.
Yeah, and your whole season is very rich in terms of the people that you're bringing in and the kind of repertoire they do. Got a question for Bill Harbison as chairman of the board and somebody responsible for a not-for-profit organization. Do you find it a challenge these days to put together a season and produce classical music in the Valley?
Well, John's the artistic director, so he puts the season together in terms of the musicians, and it seems like my job is to raise the funds and market the programs and do the development that I can, and that seems to be fairly successful over the years. I think we are all concerned about the audience that's going to come back after the pandemic. We did have 5 concerts last spring. Most of them were at Bombyx, which was very, very successful. And we did have a very enthusiastic audience. And this year, we're hoping that people feel more confident to come. We have a very, very nice ticketing system for young students. And actually, if a adult brings a child, the adult can get in for $10, and the child is free. So we're trying to encourage younger people to come. And we've marketed the music schools, we marketed the high school music departments. And so we're very hopeful we can get a younger audience, and we're hopeful our audience of many years, which has been very faithful, will come back. But Mark, as you know, it's a challenge. So
It certainly is. I mean, John and I have worked together for years in public radio. And Bill, I know that you have produced with your wife, Marcia Harbison, who is the assistant concert mistress of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra and MOSO. You produced chamber music in Longmeadow before. There was a whole series in this. How did you get involved in music?
well, I was a sort of music minor at Oberlin College, and continued to play music. And then I always wanted to marry a violinist, and so I found a violinist in New York when I was in medical school. And we met playing string quartets. We've kept playing string quartets and playing, and some of our kids have played, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing for us to be able to cherish with each other.
Bill, did you put an ad in the paper for a violinist, female?
No, it was I was set up by a friend of ours. So yeah, interesting. So
How often do you get to play now? I mean, I know that you've done a couple of things with Moso, but how often do you actually get to perform?
well, we do. It turns out, unfortunately, it's more memorial services and weddings now. So that's sort of what we've been relegated to, it seems. But one of these days, I think we're going to invite our friends over and have some beer and make them listen to us.
In your getting involved with Valley Classical Concert, what drew you to the organization?
Well, I always came up to the Valley Classical Concerts. I used to come to the Music in Deerfield, or it's now not called Music in Deerfield, but back when John was in charge of it then. And turns out one of my patients was on the board of Valley Classic, and I asked whether they would have any interest in having me on the board, and that's how I got on the board. And I was on the board for 2 or 3 years, and the next thing you know, they made me president. So, and then the pandemic hit, and so everything's been sort of topsy-turvy since then. So,
But you guys were able to produce, I mean, to some degree, you bounced back from the pandemic in terms of concerts much more quickly than some of the other arts organizations. Are the audiences coming back, or is it still kind of a waiting game?
well, we haven't had the concert yet this year, so we're anxiously kind of awaiting our concert coming up November 19th, which is the Smetana Piano Trio. And we don't really have any indication right now. We certainly have sold tickets, we've sold subscriptions, but I think this is a generation, the younger generation especially, and everybody's become digitized over the pandemic, that they want to just be able to buy a ticket very quickly off the internet and come. And so I think there'll be a lot of last minute ticket buyers, and we hope to have a good crowd.
So, John, why don't you fill us in on some of the other concerts that are coming up going into the new year, and give us details on how to get information?
Well, all the information is at valleyclassicalconcerts.org. Do you want to hear about our November concert?
I think we air right afterwards, so let's
Okay,
move
let's
towards
go ahead then. Yeah. All right. Let's go to January 15th. Then we'll be at the Bombyx Center for Arts and Equity in Florence. The organizers there have done a great job taking this beautiful little congregational church and making it, in addition to a space for religious service, space for music of many different varieties, and we're sort of providing the classical end of things. We have this is kind of an oxymoron, an all-star chamber music trio. I mean, chamber music is supposed to be all for one, one for all. Nobody takes the takes the limelight, but we have three very fine soloists who also like to come together and make music together as partners. The violinist William Hagen, Orion Weiss, who's a terrific pianist. We presented his video of the Bach Goldberg variations during the pandemic, and it was a terrific event. And a cellist named Nicholas Kanalakis. And the piano trio, it's not three pianos, it's piano, violin, and cello. And many, indeed most of the great composers who wrote chamber music wrote for this combination of instruments. Again, we've got your Haydn. He also was a pioneer in writing piano trios, and they're wonderful, sparkling, humorous works. And then there's Dvorak again, and one of his most characteristically Czech works. It's called the Dumky Trio. Now, it sounds like a kind of dumpling, but no, a dumky or a dumka singular. It's a Slavic word meaning a thought. And in music, it's a kind of folk form that has a slow, lamenting kind of melody and then kicks up its heels in a dance. And what this trio consists of is a half dozen of them. So it's like a modern American composer wrote 6 blues, let's say, or 6 rap songs and called it the rap trio or the blues trio. Well, this is the Dumky trio. So 6 folk forms, and I'm cavelling. It's such a great piece. I mean, you just got to hear it. It's so much fun. It's got so much soul and so much heart. And then Mendelssohn. Mendelssohn is so classic, so suave, so Mozartian, always melodic. I don't think he wrote a bad piece. And his trio in C minor is certainly one of his best chamber works. So, and it'll be in a really nice intimate space where you really feel like you're part of the action. You're watching something unfold right in front of you. That's really magical.
Bill, you were going to say something.
I just want to chime in to say that William Hagen did solo with the Springfield Symphony several years ago. Mm-hmm. And also, I just want to shout out to the Bombyx Center because last season we had no place to perform. And the Bombyx Center really stepped up and had us do 4 concerts there. So go ahead, John.
And then on Wednesday, March 8th, and that will be also at Smith College, we're presenting a terrific young cellist. How terrific? Well, he just won the International Tchaikovsky competition, like the first American in quite some time to do it. His name is Zlatomir Fung. He's of Bulgarian and Chinese heritage, Zlati, as he's known. And he's, old, white hairs like Bill and I talk about these kids today, how crazy they play, how great they are. And he's doing an enjoyable program that will have some really solid Beethoven, his A major cello sonata, which is one of his great works. It's like the Eroica Symphony or the Violin Concerto or the Emperor Concerto. It's in that Beethoven vein. But then he's playing a lot of virtuoso pieces that take off on operatic melodies, something that cellists like to compose for themselves back in the day. The hit tunes of the day were from the operatic stage. And so they're pieces that really allow him to show us what he can do. And with a pianist named Janice Carissa, it'll be a fun program with some lighter things, but also some very satisfying Beethoven.
Quick step in also that he is a Massachusetts native, grew up in Westboro, Mass, and probably was the youngest American ever to win the Tchaikovsky. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, John.
Looking at Sunday, April 23rd at 3:00, we have a wonderful pianist named Sergei Babiyan. He's well known as a master teacher at Indiana University, but is a fire-breathing pianist, and you have to be to do what he's going to do for us, and that is acknowledge and commemorate the 150th anniversary of the birth of Sergei Rachmaninoff, who was, of course, himself one of the great romantic virtuoso pianists, and in addition to being a very inspired composer. So this will be a program of Rachmaninoff's solo piano music, which comes in a lot of sizes and shapes, and is filled with that brooding but warm Russian melody that Rachmaninoff was famous for. So for piano fanciers, but also just for fanciers of great music, again, very intimate, very direct, filled with fireworks, but also with warmth and passion. That April 23rd program will be wonderful. And then we're back to conclude our season on May 21st. So the leaves that are behind me now will be down and then replaced by other ones by then in the spring. And it's always been a favorite thing for Valley Classical Concerts to do, to scout out some of the really young, especially string quartets, who are going to represent the next generation, as de Moreau did, say, 30 years ago when they were just starting out. And this is a group that's in residence at the New England Conservatory in Boston called the Balourdet Quartet. Where these quartets come up with their names is sometimes quite remarkable. And they're doing a program that will have Hugo Wolf's delightful Italian serenade, a really nice like Italian overture for the concert. Mendelssohn will be back with one of his string quartets, and then they're going to scale one of the highest peaks of the string quartet literature, that is Beethoven's Quartet, Opus 130, which concludes with one of Beethoven's craggiest and pardon me, I choke up just thinking about it, and most striking works, the Grosse Fuge, the Great Fugue, in which the quartet, the strings practically catch on fire. They have to dig in so hard to realize Beethoven's incredible inspiration. So we've got some solo piano, we've got a terrific trio, we've got the string quartets coming up, and we have a rich and varied program that, on the spirit of if you like one concert, hey, come back for the next one because you'll like that one too.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back to talk more here on Artsbeat with Valley Classical Concerts, John Montanari and Bill Harbison. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley, with convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut. Visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
Underwriting is brought to you by Boise Cascade Distribution, providing products and services needed for building material dealers, home improvement centers, and industrial customers. They offer everything from engineered wood and plywood to Drex decking and railing, James Hardy siding, and Advantech subfloor. Located at 33 Fowler Street Extension in Westfield and on the web at bc.com, they are committed to providing quality products, great service, convenience, and value.
Saturdays were made for polka. Tune in to the Polka Jammer Network starting at 6 a.m. and Polka Hall of Famer Billy Bellina, Breakfast at BB at 8:30.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. If you've missed a part of today's program or you want to watch it again or share it with friends, you'll find it archived on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio. My guests for this half hour are John Montanari and Bill Harbison from Valley Classical Concerts. John is the artistic director and the one who programs this extraordinary season of chamber music up and down the valley. And Bill Harbison is the chairman of the board. He's the dude that keeps the organization going and raises the money and all of that good stuff. And have to do a shout out to the fact that both of you are doing such fine work to promote classical music here up and down the valley, and it's very much appreciated. John, I know you're the one who books the groups. How far out do you book? Are you booking into 2023, 24 yet, or 24, 25? Because some of the groups that you book have extraordinarily busy tour schedules.
I'm just about to turn my attention to our next season, which will be the 22-23. And we'll usually settle that one by the early spring. So by March or April, we hope to have our season put together. We have to, of course, arrange with our venues, and we have 2 different venues. And, we have to check with their open dates and coordinate them with the dates that the artists have. We like to do Saturday and Sundays generally, so that restricts things a little bit. Of course, we have a budget to be concerned about. I mean, these musicians are earning their livelihood by performing concerts for us, but they're also usually very flexible with understanding that small presenters like us have our constraints, and it's still worth their while to come with us. Like to mix different kinds of ensembles, string quartets with trios and a solo piano, and maybe something a little bit novel. We look for ensembles that offer programming that has something a little different about it, maybe something contemporary, or maybe a specialty that they will bring to our series. And but we also try to again keep a consistency of appeal, so that again, if you like one of our concerts, chances are you're going to like them all. And by the way, let me just give a shout out to the listeners to your polka show, that you should come hear that Dvorak Dumki trio that I was talking about before on January 15th, because it's like 6 polkas. You'll feel right at home. So come on out. We're gonna hear some live music.
Yeah, I don't get to listen to our polka stuff that often, but I know people like it quite a bit. John, how many people does it take behind the scenes to get a concert going?
It's like how many VCC volunteers and board members does it take to screw in a concert?
Right, yeah.
A lot. We have those who are involved with the actual production of the concert, working with the musicians and with our halls and the janitors and the ushers and the like. In fact, it's my wife, Karen Tarlow, who's our concert producer. So she makes sure that they have the right snacks, and that somebody's there to greet them when they come by and all the like. Go ahead, Bill.
And the piano tuners as well. We have to contract with them.
And of course, we have the board that's responsible for helping to administer our series and raise the funds necessary to put it on, and do the publicity necessary to get people to come on out, and to get their friends and neighbors and other strangers, we hope, to consider coming to our concerts. So it takes a dedicated board, but also volunteers who help to take the tickets and sell the tickets and lead people to their seats, and do what they do. There has to be the back of the house as well.
So if somebody wants to get involved with Valley Classical Concerts, besides going and buying a ticket, but they want to volunteer or be a donor, who do they reach out to, and how do they make it happen?
I think they could certainly reach out to our administrator, who is Melanie Finn, and they could do that by the telephone number, which I believe is 586-0458, or by contacting her by email, which is info@valleyclassicalconcerts.org, or they could contact me directly. So I'd be happy to talk to anybody.
That's terrific, and people can subscribe still, or just buy an individual ticket, and they can donate whenever they want. Correct?
Yes, that's true. We do have subscriptions. Of course, as you know, Mark, subscriptions are down everywhere. As I alluded to before, more and more people are just interested in, oh, there's a concert this weekend. I think I want to buy a ticket, and we'll do that. They can't commit themselves to 6 concerts because they're going to be in Florida for 3 of them, and who knows. But yes, you can get subscriptions for all 6 concerts, or 4 out of the 6.
That's terrific. Gentlemen, we're out of time, but I want to thank you for coming on Artsbeat today. We've been chatting with John Montanari and Bill Harbison from Valley Classical Concerts. And if you like classical music or you just want to try it out, they perform primarily in the Upper Valley, but they do have a couple of concerts at Smith. They have a beautiful performance space in Florence called the Bombyx Center, and they present some of the finest classical music that you're going to see around and about. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, and this wraps up another edition of Artsbeat TV and Radio. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll see you next Friday with another Artsbeat.
Did you just hear what I just heard? That noise don't come from no ordinary bird. It may be just a cricket or a critter in the trees. It's giving me the jitters and the joints around my knees. I think I see a jijik and it's fuzzy and it's furry. I haven't got a brain, but I think I ought to worry. I haven't got a heart, but I feel a palpitation. As monarch of the forest, I don't like this situation. You gonna stand around and let it fill us full of horror? I'd like to roar 'em down. But I think I lost my roarer. Great. It's a who's this? It's a who's this? It's a what's this? It's a what's this? Who's that? Who's there? Who's where? Beware! Who's that hiding in the treetop? It's that rascal, the jitterbug. If you catch him buzzing around you, keep away from the jitterbug. Oh, the bees in the breeze and the bats in the trees have a terrible, horrible buzz. But the bees in the breeze and the bats in the trees couldn't do what the jitterbug does. So just be careful of that rascal. Keep away from the jitterbug. The jitterbug. Oh, the jitter. Oh, the bug. Oh, the jitterbug. Do I, do I, do I, do I? I'm a twitter in the throes. The critters got me dancing on 1,000 toes. There she goes. There she goes. Who's that hiding in the treetops? It's that rascal. Jitterbug, jitterbug. Should you catch him buzzing round you, keep away from jitterbug, jitterbug. All the bees in the breeze and the bats in the trees have a terrible, horrible buzz. But the bees in the breeze and the bats in the trees can do what the jitterbug does. What the jitterbug do what the jitterbug does. So be careful of that rascal. Keep away from the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the bats and the fleas all agree to stay away from that old jay, the jitterbug.